Good evening, Elvis fans. I'm back with another video. I apologize for the delay in between the last one and this one. I'm going to actually do a couple tonight, so hopefully I can get these uploaded or downloaded or whatever you call it to YouTube so you can start seeing these. The last video I did, I said that I was going to do a video on how we used to get things way back when, before the internet and social networking and everything. Basically what it was when they started coming out in the early 70s, it was all basically word of mouth through fan clubs. There was a couple over in Europe, one in Canada, I think it was Spring Valley Record Club. They came out with the Hillbilly Cat live album, and then they did several others after that. But it was basically all done word of mouth. If you were in a fan club, you would get updates, or you would hear rumors. Hey, there's this new Elvis album coming out that's got stuff that we've never heard. I don't think RCA's even released it yet. So that's how that came about. And then at some point, people started doing price lists. I've got a couple here that were pretty basic. Like this one came from, I think this was Daly City Bob. He was from out in California. But basically, this is what it was. I mean, it's very basic, just on an 8.5 by 11-inch sheet of paper. A little bit of graphics. And this one is a double-sided. This had Elvis stuff on video and Elvis stuff on beta, if you can remember that, or VHS. And then on the back of this one, there's some ads for different albums. So things stayed like that for quite a while. Every now and then you would get something with a little bit more graphics, like this. This one came from Stephen Bates in Oregon. I'm guessing this is probably late 77, early 78. And just kind of depending on who the seller was. It mentioned fan clubs. This was the 50 Million Elvis Fans Can't Be Wrong fan club out of New Jersey. They actually had a little booklet and just some information on what you could buy. And this one didn't really have anything by title. You kind of had to write to them, and then they would give you the titles. Here's another one. This was an ad for Presley Mania Volume 1. Again, very rudimentary kind of thing. And I'm going to be talking about Vic Colonna quite a bit. Vic Colonna was actually made up of two people. It was Sam Thieker and Paul Dowling. Paul started it, and then Sam got involved through trading some rare Elvis stuff. So this is one of Paul's very first flyers, and this was announcing the 68 comeback, which was the first kind of collaboration between Sam and Paul. And I say that because Paul actually did it, but some of the material on this record came courtesy of Sam. So this is an ad for the 68 comeback. And at that time, you could get it for $10 and 50 cents for postage and handling. So for $10.50, you could get this album. And then he's got a list of some other records, foreign pressings, some of the harder to find things like the Fool album from 1973, that kind of thing. And then he's got an even bigger list. This is all foreign stuff. Paul Dowling has probably got about 99% of every Elvis record that's ever been made, no matter the country. He's just got an absolutely astounding collection. But that's basically how it was done, through all these flyers and leaflets. At one point, when Sam and Paul were really doing well, they actually started coming out with catalogs. They were all black and white, nothing really exciting. They had added not only the bootlegs they were doing, but different pictures you could get, movies. Believe it or not, you could get movies that were either on actual film or videotape. Like, for instance, you could get all 3 Sullivan shows. If you wanted it on videotape, it was $75. So we're talking quite a bit of money back then. The Aloha from Hawaii special, if you want it on videotape, that would have cost you $90. Some of their other albums, the 68 Comeback, the Dorsey shows, and then From the Waist Up. So this is one of their earlier catalogs. Here's one advertisement for the Rockin' Rebel. And kind of funny enough, on the back of it, they have an ad for an actual RCA record, the Unchained Melody white vinyl copy. So they did sell actual RCA product. Going through the years, more just flyers and smaller catalogs. After Elvis died, they had a little bit of everything. And they were selling not only their stuff, like if you ever wondered where Behind Closed Doors came from, that was a Vic Colonna release. It did not come from West Germany. It came from Southern California. The Burbank sessions, again, those were not German releases. Sam and Paul got access to the videotapes of the shows, so that's how these came out. Rockin' Rebel stuff on here. And so they've got a lot of the stuff that they did. And again, ironically enough, they were selling RCA releases. The Entertainer was another bootleg. That was one that they didn't do. And then you just have all different kinds of things. Again, more books and photos. These 3 bootlegs at the top, those were all Sun EPs, and I think those were done by Richard Miner of Florida. And they were kind of in business together. So just various things. And then again on videotape, $70, $80, that kind of thing. So you had all that. This was actually in a country music magazine. Somehow they were able to get it through. This was for the Dorsey shows. This was a total bootleg, and they actually got it into a legitimate country music magazine. Raymond Smith, he was another guy. Daly City Bob, he's really famous in the bootleg industry. You'll notice here, custom LPs. That was one of the ways they were sold bootlegs, was by saying that they were custom albums. It wasn't a real album, it was a custom album. And again, that's why you'll see a lot of albums that, they were from Egypt or Japan or Germany was another big one that Vic Colonna used. And the reason they did that is they were trying to fool the post office and customs inspectors into thinking that these were legitimately made imports from another country. And obviously they weren't. They were being manufactured in Southern California and weren't even close to a foreign country. Well, Mexico, but you get the idea. That's why a lot of bootleggers put they were from a foreign country, because they tried to get it through as a legitimate import. And then just, some basic flyers. These were ones that Sam and Paul did. Every time they came out with a brand new one, they would come out with a flyer. And then when they had enough material, they would do a catalog. So that's basically how it was done. Once the bootleg industry really got up and running, that was the way it was done, was through fan clubs. And you could get these, if you knew of the bootleggers like Vic Colonna, Paul Lister, he was another one. He started out in Pennsylvania and then he lives in Arizona now. That's how you got them. Now, when the FBI busted all these guys, it became a little bit harder to get, especially in the United States. United States was, up until the FBI bust in the early 80s, it was pretty easy to get bootlegs. You could even go into some independent record stores and they carried them just right out in the racks with everything else. And then after the FBI busts happened, the U.S. part of it virtually disappeared and went overseas. A lot of stuff came out of Italy, Holland, some of those European countries over there. And you could still get catalogs. There was a guy called Peter Vollmann. He was from West Germany. He sold a lot of bootlegs, some of the later ones from the 80s. And there was other people, of course. And then there was magazines called Discoveries and Goldmine, and people openly advertised in there. So it was pretty easy if you knew what you were looking for, it was pretty easy to find them. Then after that went away, you've got the internet, eBay, whatever. People ask now, where can you find even the old ones? eBay is a great source. There's another one called CD and LP for sale. It's a website. They've got a few hundred bootlegs at any given time. Discogs, if they haven't discovered it yet, that's another place where you can find bootlegs from time to time. But as soon as somebody turns them in, they disappear. You can't buy them off Discogs anymore. They're pretty good at monitoring that. And there's a couple of other places overseas. I know there's a guy in France that he does a lot of the newer CDs, and there's another one. I can't remember exactly where it's from. I bought a couple of bootlegs from them, but that's another European place that had quite a bit of stuff. So that's how it was done back then. And again, today, eBay is a great source. CD and LP for sale is a great source. Sometimes you just have to use Google or Bing or whatever and look it up that way. So that is how it was done back then. That's where you can get them now. And my next one is going to be on some of the That's the Way It Is bootlegs. Thanks for watching and have a great evening.